Will Cody be doing our adjustments, or who's doing that today?
Sheila will be doing that.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, Clerk Sharback. I do know that we have regrets from Councillor Hamilton. Have you received any other regrets? We, at this time, only have 3 members, and of course, we've got 4 members now. Are you aware of anyone else for regrets? Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Hi, Doug.
Yeah, I couldn't get in because I was using a password on the agenda. Is that going to be a problem for people? Sile just sent me a different password, meeting ID.
Well, I did. That's good to know. I came in via the West Grey calendar agenda and had no difficulty. So 2 experiences at this time to forward on to staff. Thank you, Doug, for mentioning that.
I did see a message from Councillor Herget saying she would not be attending this morning.
Okay, thank you. Was that an email, Councillor, or was that sent to you?
No, that was a text.
A text.
And I think she also advised the clerk.
Thanks for letting us know that she provided you with the text.
You're welcome.
So we're not able to start the meeting until 1 more member of council attends, and we're waiting on Councillor Shea, as we now have learned that Councillor Hergert is regrets in addition to Councillor Hamilton. Clerk Sharback, are we able to indicate whether Councillor Shea will be attending or whether he had any difficulty with the login?
I don't know. I'm just looking here. I'll check my email to see if he's reached out.
Okay. And confirmation that Councillor Hamilton sent you regrets as well, please. Sorry, Councillor Hergert.
Yeah, Robinson, I have no communication from Councillor Shea at this time, and I did receive a notice of regrets from Councillor Hergert.
Thank you for advising me of that. I'm wondering if there could be an outreach to Councillor Shea, just in the event that there's some disconnect with the link. Thank you. Hello, everyone. We will get started. So, communications coordinator, could you please start the recording?
Good morning, Mayor Robinson. The meeting is recording.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? Okay, very good. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is the West Grey Public Meeting for June 20th, 2022. I'm calling the meeting to order under item number 1. All members of council are present, with exception to Councillor Hamilton, who provided me with regrets early this morning. And through the clerk, I'm also aware there was an email sent regrets from Councillor Hergert. We have not, Councillor Shea is not present at this time. Outreach has been done by staff to connect with them. However, that connection hasn't been made. So we look forward to Councillor Shea attending if that is at all possible. So we will continue. We do have a quorum. And at this time, corporate communications coordinator, could you please advise of the electronic features of this morning's meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. Before I begin, if you get disconnected, you can dial in 1-647-558-0588 and enter the meeting ID for this meeting, which is 849-6974-7298. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being hosted on Zoom meeting software, but is also being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation and comments are not monitored on YouTube and must be done through the Zoom meeting software. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands physically on camera to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance throughout the duration of the meeting, please send a chat message to myself, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you very much. And now we are moving on to item number 2, which is purpose of meeting. Clerk Scharbeck, could you please identify the purpose of this morning's meeting?
Through you, Mayor Robinson. The purpose of this morning's public meeting is to review applications for proposed amendments to the West Grey zoning bylaw number 37-2006, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the applications. Council will not make a decision on the applications at this meeting. Based on the recommendations and the information received at this public meeting, amending bylaws may be presented for approval at a regular council meeting. A public registry is available by email at sferguson@westgrey.com. And if any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on an application, they are to provide their name and mailing address for the registry. This will also allow for notice of an Ontario Land Tribunal hearing if the decision on the application is appealed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Clerk Scharbeck. We are now moving on to item number 3, which is a declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. I'm asking the members of council at this time, is there anything to declare? Seeing none, we will now move on to item number 4. Item 4, ZA 10.2022, 521-294 and 521-268, concession 12 NDR. 4.1, application for zoning amendment, ZA 10.2022, Graham. And now we go to 4.2, Planner L. Spencer Report, ZA 10.2022, Graham, Dennis, and Graham, Julie. Good morning, Planner Spencer. We look forward to your presentation. But before that occurs, I would ask Clerk Scharbeck to read the recommendation. I will look for a mover and seconder. We'll have the planner's report, Any questions from members of council, and then call the vote? Clerk Sharbeck, to the recommendation, please.
Through you, Mayor, the recommendation is that council receives Planner Spencer's report and considers an amending bylaw at a future meeting.
Is there a mover for this motion? Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Townsend. Thank you. Over to you, Planner Spencer, please.
Thank you, and good morning. Through you, Madam Mayor. The recommendation, as repeated by the clerk, is to receive the report and proceed to a regular council meeting for consideration at that time. The applicant has applied to change the zoning on the subject lands to recognize deficient lot area as a result of files B05 2022 and B07 2022, both of which involve lot additions. As a result of the lot additions, 2 detached single dwelling units will exist on a single parcel. The purpose of the application is to change the zone symbols on the subject lands from A2 rural and NE natural environment to A2 rural and A2 with exception 461 and NE natural environment. Exception 461 will recognize the deficient lot area of the parcel to the east, in addition to recognizing 2 existing single detached dwelling units on the same parcel. This application will be before the Committee of Adjustment to make lot line additions to accommodate the 2 single detached dwelling units that are currently in existence. Staff know that the proposed required a second application to legally deal with lot addition through the Committee of Adjustment for file numbers, and they are out of sequence as a result, but are correctly identified. The conditions recommended for both the 2 files are the payment of any outstanding municipal taxes, payment of an entrance permit application fee, receipt of an entrance permit for the newly enlarged parcel identified as 521294 concession 12, or confirmation of an existing entrance permit that the existing access to both parcels from 521268 concession 12 be stopped up and closed, or a prescriptive easement is registered on title in favor of 521294 concession 12 NDR. The payment of the zoning bylaw amendment application fee, approval of the zoning bylaw amendment to recognize the deficient lot area and to recognize the presence of 2 existing single detached dwelling units on the lot. The severed lands for file B05 2022 must merge with the adjacent lands to the east. And finally, that the severed lands for file B07 2022 merge with the adjacent lands to the south. Planning staff have not received any comments with respect to support or opposition to the application from either the public or commenting agencies. The details of the report that will be presented to Committee of Adjustments later today have been provided for consideration as part of the public meeting. There is no implication for staff, and the consultation has been provided. Staff have no further comment in this regard and are happy to provide additional clarification as required. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Planner Spencer. At this time, members of council, are there any questions? Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, just some point of clarification. I'm just a little curious. So on the one parcel, there's going to be 2 residents. Were they on separate parcels before, and then now that because of the changing of the lot lines, they become on one parcel? How has that come about?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So there was an encroachment. So they were built before pre-building code, and as a result, they're historic properties. So one was encroaching on another property. How that exactly occurred is basically there was no requirement for zoning at the point in time they were constructed. So at this point in time, they will be existing on a singular lot, and there won't be an encroachment issue, which is supported by planning staff. Happy to clarify further.
Anything further, Councillor?
Yeah, so are these 2 separate residents that live in these 2 houses, or is this going to be one, do we know, like this is one residential property with 2 houses on it?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So the difference is that we don't classify whether or not it's familial or whether it is 2 separate individuals, but they will actually be like one of them is actually encroaching on the lot line of the lot. So whether going forward, that's two separate families or whether it's a son and daughter and a mom and dad, that it doesn't, from a planning perspective, really matter. It's just recognizing what needs to be corrected.
Okay, so if I may, one other question, just about there was talk about an easement, but I do see that there's a second entrance into the other parcel, which looks like it's been put in recently. So there's no issue now with an easement on this original driveway, right?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. There needs to be a correction with respect to the second entrance entering into a second property. So either a prescriptive easement needs to be registered on title through their lawyer, or they will have to apply for another consent application to recognize an easement for permission for the adjacent property to utilize their property.
Okay, it looked like to me there was already another driveway in there. It looked like it was new, but maybe that's something else. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Members of council, are there any additional questions with regard to Planner Spencer's report or the motion at hand? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate with a raised hand. 4 members of council voted in favor of this motion. This motion is carried. 4.3, written comments received. Planner Spencer, at this time, and with regard to this item, are there any additional comments?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. There are no additional comments in favor or opposition from the public or commenting agencies at this time.
Thank you. Clerk Sherbeck, same question to you. Have you received any written comments with regard to this application?
Through Mayor Robinson, no, I have not received any comments either. Thank you.
Thank you as well. 4.4, verbal comments. 4.4.1, council members. Members of council, are there any comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll move on to 4.4.2, public members. Corporate communications coordinator, Ferguson, could you please assist to determine if there's anyone at this time that wishes to speak to this application, and that would be agent, applicant, or anyone from the public. Please proceed.
Through you, Mayor Robinson. For members of the public wishing to speak, you can do so in one of two ways. If you have joined us over the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand and I can unmute you at the mayor's request. Alternatively, you can press *9 again to lower your hand. If you have joined us using the online meeting software and are wishing to speak, please send a chat message to myself, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I can unmute you. Or alternatively, you can send your comment and I can read it on your behalf. And at this time, Mayor, I am not seeing any members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you. I've also reviewed the dashboard and I appreciate that very much, that we're not seeing anyone at this time with regard to this application that wishes to speak. So we will move on to 4.5, which is next steps. Over to you, Clerk Sherbeck, please.
Through you, Mayor. The next steps is for staff to bring forward an appropriate zoning amendment bylaw for council's consideration at a future council meeting. If that bylaw is approved, there is a 20-day waiting period or appeal period. And if no appeals are received, the applicants will be advised that this condition of their consent has been fulfilled. Thank you.
And thank you as well. We're now moving on to item number 5, ZA 11.2022, 213043 baseline. 5.1, application for zoning amendment, ZA 11.2022, Lychee. 5.2, Planner L. Spencer report, ZA 11.2022, Lychee, Earl. Over to you, Clerk Sherbeck, for the recommendation at hand.
Mayor, the recommendation is that council receives Planner Spencer's report and considers an amending bylaw at a future meeting.
Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Hutchinson, is there a seconder for this motion? Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Over to you, Planner Spencer, for the presentation on this application.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, as reported by the clerk, the council to receive Planner Spencer's report and consider the appropriate first, second, and third reading of the bylaw at a subsequent meeting, and that a non-service agreement be registered on title at the landowner's expense. So the subject lands are municipally identified as 213043 baseline. Property is legally identified as concession 3, lot 5, part lot 6, registered plan 17R879, part 3, unregistered. The geographic township of Normanby. The subject lands do not currently contain frontage on an open and maintained municipal road. And the purpose of this application is to change the zone symbol on the subject lands from A2 rural, NE natural environment, NE2 natural environment 2, NC6 102, which is rural commercial with an exception. They would be changed to A2, exception 462, A2 rural, NE natural environment, and NE2 natural environment 2. Exception 462 will permit development on the land without open and maintained frontage on a portion of the lands only, the effect of which will permit development on a portion of the lands and require the registration of a non-service agreement on title, acknowledging that snow removal and access to the property is the sole responsibility of the property owner, including for the purposes of fire and emergency access. The previous approval for the location of a building supply outlet under exception 102 will be removed. Comments have been received from the County of Grey relative to the application, which recommend a holding provision be placed on the property. Staff do not believe that that is a requirement at this time, based on the fact that the NE2 zone symbol essentially requires that regardless. The recommendation from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority is similar to the request for a holding provision, but staff do not believe that's necessary as a result of the county official plan, in accordance also with the implementation of the local zoning bylaw. No further comments have been received in support or in opposition of the application at this time that have been received by the planning department. So the recommendation is to proceed as required, and happy to clarify further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Planner Spencer. Members of council, are there any questions with regard to the presentation by Planner Spencer? Councillor Hutchinson, please go ahead.
Yeah, so just again, sort of clarification. So this property is previous to this agreement where we have a non-servicing agreement. How does that, like, fire and whatnot would have had to service this property regardless, right? They have a fire number, and there's actually, when you look at that road, there's actually another fire number further in on that closed road. So I'm sure it's good that we have a non-service agreement, but previous to this, we don't have service agreements. So how does that work in terms of us and our planning and our policies regarding servicing these buildings?
Planner Spencer.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, essentially the requirement can be likened to if someone was on a farm and they essentially have a long laneway, they would be serviced, but the ability for that service to be provided if they did not have their lane blown or etc., the onus would be away, the liability would be taken away from the municipality. By registering that non-service agreement on title going forward will provide the current landowner and any future landowner the ability to understand that they have that responsibility. The unopened and unmaintained frontage, there's a few of them out there, and that is a result of buildings being constructed pre-Building Code Act and pre-requirements for permits and pre the current zoning bylaw in place at this time. This is a common occurrence relative to new zoning that's in place that's been updated over time. And as we don't require people to do so, but we do need to be able to advise them. And if they require a permit for an accessory structure, which is the intent in this case, this is required in order for us to be able to amend the zoning bylaw to recognize that they have permission to build on a certain portion of the property. Happy to clarify further as required.
Anything further, Councillor?
No, I guess just a comment that because they are on this unopened road lot, and I see this one as being there are field access to this other properties and like I say, another fire number further in, and it also looks like it could very well be a snowmobile trail. So as long as people have the understanding that even though they may be responsible for keeping the road open to their property, that other people may use that road, and they have to respect that. So. That's my only concern with this, but I guess it's been happening in the past and seems to work, so that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members of council, with respect to this application? Seeing none, Clerk Sharbuck, could you please read the motion again, and then I'll call the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I just want to clarify that I missed the second part of this recommendation that a non-service agreement be registered on title. So the recommendation is that council receives Planner Spencer's report and considers an amending bylaw at a future meeting, and that a non-service agreement be registered on title at the landowner's expense.
So Councillor Hutchinson, as the mover, are you fine with the motion? Thank you. And as the seconder, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Both indicated with the thumbs up. I appreciate that. Questions on the motion? All those in favor indicate with the raised hand. 4 members of council voted in favor. That motion is carried. We are now moving on to 5.3, written comments received. Thank you very much for your presentation, Planner Spencer. But with regard to 5.3.1, Sauget Valley Conservation Authority, and in addition, have you received any other comments?
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, with respect to the comments from the county and the SVCA, no additional comments in favor or opposition to the application from the public or commenting agencies have been received at this time.
Thank you. Clerk Sharbuck, have you received any comments with regard to this application?
Through Mayor, no, I have not received anything other than what Planner Spencer noted there.
Thank you. 5.4, verbal comments. We'll begin 5.4.1. Council members of council, are there any comments at this time? Seeing none. 5.4.2, public members. Communications Coordinator Ferguson, could you please assist in determining if there's anyone, members of the public, including the agent applicant, that wish to speak at this time with regard to the application at hand?
Through you, Mayor Robinson. For members of the public wishing to speak, you can do so in one of 2 ways. If you have joined us over the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and I can unmute you at the mayor's request. Alternatively, you can press *9 again to lower your hand. If you have joined us using the online meeting software and are wishing to speak, please send a chat message to myself, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I can unmute you. Or alternatively, you can send your comment and I can read it on your behalf. And at this time, Mayor, I am not seeing any members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you very much. We will move on to 5.5, next steps. Over to you, Clerk Sharbuck, please.
Through Mayor Robinson. The next steps will be for staff to bring forward an amending bylaw for an upcoming council meeting for council's consideration. If that bylaw is passed by council, there is a 20-day appeal period. And at that time, planning staff will notify the applicant. They will also be required to enter into a non-service agreement with the municipality.
Thank you. We're now moving on to item number 6, closed public meeting. Clerk Sharbuck to the recommendation.
Through you, the recommendation is that council hereby closes the public meeting at 9:39 a.m.
Is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Townsend. Is there a seconder for this motion? Deputy Mayor. All those in favor indicate with a raised hand. 4 members of council voted in favor of this motion. The motion is carried. Thank you very much. This concludes our meeting. Have a wonderful day. And for those that will be joining us for Committee of Adjustment, that meeting is at 1 p.m.